Good evening. We are in person and happy about it. I said that kind of loud, didn't I? The City of Peabody Zoning Board of Appeals meets tonight in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40A, and other applicable laws. Tonight's hearing will be conducted in the following manner. The Secretary will read the legal notice or state that such notice has been waived. All applications will be heard this evening in the order they were received in the City Clerk's office or as otherwise designated by the Chair. The petition or petitioner's representative will present the subject application to the Board. I may limit the length of all remarks. All parties in interest will be given an opportunity to speak either in favor or in opposition to a pending application, and the Board may receive similar written communications to be placed on the public record. The petitioner will be given the opportunity to refute any such remarks. I'm going to stop here only because we haven't met in person for a while, and it looks like there are some new people that haven't done this before. So here's how it works in language you can understand. When it is your turn, whether you are number 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, Secretary will read your application. You will come to the podium, turn on the mic so the little red light goes on, state your name and address for the record, and then tell us why you're here, what you're asking for, why. Please keep it short and sweet and to the point. You are here for dimensional relief. We do not want to know that you are putting in a screened-in porch that now needs windows because you do not want to listen to your neighbor's dog barking. We don't want to know about trees and leaves that fall in your pool. You're here for dimensional relief. We want to know why you're building and why you need relief. When you're done, the Board will probably ask you a few questions. Then I will say if there's anybody in the audience to speak in favor. Your neighbors, if they're here, will come up, state their name and address for the record, and tell us what wonderful neighbors you are and they have no problem with whatever you're building. I will then say, is there anybody that wants to speak in opposition? Then your neighbor or neighbors will come up and tell us all the things wrong with whatever it is you're trying to build and why it is disturbing to them. If this were a full auditorium this evening, I would then say, if we have 10 neighbors coming up to the podium and the first 5 have said something different and the last 5 have the same thing to say, you just have to state your name and address for the record and say, I agree with the prior neighbors. At that point, excuse me, you can come back up to the podium and you can address any of their concerns, or your attorney or your builder, whoever you brought with you. And that's that part. Then the Board may ask a few more questions. We take a vote to either approve or to deny, and at that point, the decision is typed and filed with the City Clerk. Once the decision is filed with the City Clerk, the 20-day appeal period begins. Also, you will hear from the Zoning Board Clerk, Carla McGrath, within the week to tell you and to explain and answer any questions you have. In compliance with the open meeting law, this hearing is also being recorded by our clerk. When you are up at the podium, please speak directly into the microphone. Once again, name and address for the record. The last thing is, please do not speak from your seat. I haven't had to say that for a long time, but I think it's been a year and a half. But inevitably, not tonight, I'm sure, but we have somebody that forgets something and they just yell from their seat. You can have another turn at the microphone if you need it. So, this evening, number 1 is a continued application of 40 Oak Street Development LLC for Chapter 40B Comprehensive Permit Application. You don't mind if I do this, right? As it applies to the premise known as 40 Oak Street, Peabody, Mass., map 095, lot 089X. Petitioner seeks to construct 80 rental units and it's located in R4 zoning district. But before we begin, I need to have a motion to accept the following correspondences. On 6/9/21, we need a motion to accept the revised mayor cover letter with the July 1919 original submitted. It is the same letter, he just changed the date to make it efficient. We need to also accept the correspondence from 6/3/21, a revised Hancock Associates compensatory floodplain analysis, 6/3/21, a revised site plan, 6/3/21, pre and post stormwater comparison report, and 6/21/21, a memo from Will Politz. May I have a motion to accept these correspondences into the record?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Say it again? Oh. He doesn't have a microphone. Is Attorney Smolak here tonight? Attorney Smolak is not here this evening. And the reason being, do you want to come up to the podium and maybe explain that to me? Because we have something that needed to be signed by him, and I will explain that in a minute as soon as you explain to me why he isn't here.
My name is Michael Larkin. I'm a manager of 40 Oak Street Development LLC. We're the applicant of the project. Unfortunately, Mr. Smolak and ourselves are not working together on this project, and I'll be taking over here from now on this moving forward.
Okay, so are you Attorney Larkin?
Yes,
Attorney Larkin, so at our last meeting, and I believe you zoomed in on that also, correct?
I was on the Zoom hearing, yes.
Yes. So do you remember I asked Attorney Smolak to state for the record that he what did he do? He
Continued the hearing.
continued the hearing, but he also waived constructive approval. Do you remember that?
I remember a conversation about that, yes.
Was that a yes?
I remember a conversation about that, yes. You did ask that.
And I also asked that evening if he would put it in writing in an email to Ms. McGrath. And she has emailed him every day up until about a week and a half ago, and he has yet to respond in writing. So we have something here tonight, and I'm going to cross out his name, and I'm going to put your name. Did you say Michael?
Michael Larkin.
Michaelarkin, attorney? Want me to put attorney?
No.
No? So, do you mind signing this?
What we're going to do is sign an extension. We're not signing anything else. So looking at this document, I'm going to cross out this last line here.
You already waived constructive criticism. For the record, he did that evening. He spoke those words.
That's what I'm telling you I'm going to sign right here and now.
Okay. Date it, please.
What date today, 6/21?
Yes. Thank you. Question. He verbalized last meeting that he stated for the record, with his words, that he waived constructive approval, and that he was, in favor of continuing. And now
Yes, in favor of a continuance, so that's what I agreed to, a continuance.
Well, you might agree to it, but he agreed to it in his words last meeting that he waived constructive approval. And now you crossed that out.
That's correct.
So it doesn't matter.
Through the chair, that was done after a conversation with you, that you waived construction approval. You asked for a recess, the chairman gave it to you, and you came back and stated that you waived conditional approval.
Attorney Smolak stated that.
Exactly.
Right.
In his capacity as the attorney at the time.
So if the board wants to take a look at, this was written because Attorney Smolak never did what he said he would, and now Attorney Larkin just crossed it out. Stephen, what do you think? Okay. So we accept it. Okay. So I'm going to go on the record by repeating that at our last meeting, the attorney, which was under your employment, stated in his own words that he waived constructive approval and that he was fine with continuing this meeting until this evening because May 31st was the deadline. So you can cross that out, but as far as I'm concerned, the attorney at the time stated he was fine with waiving constructive approval. That being said, since he is not here, do you have any follow-up? Here with us tonight.
Yes, I have Mr. Joe Pasnola from Hancock Engineering going to give an update regarding the back and forth between the consultants.
That's great.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. For the record, Joe Pasnola from Hancock Associates, the project civil engineers. When last we met, we were charged to meet with Mr. Politz and Ms. Bernardo with regards to the outstanding engineering technical issues, both from his review, her review, and the World Tech traffic review. You are in receipt of 2 correspondences today from Mr. Politz and Ms. Bernardo, which I believe verifies our belief that we have satisfied all of the outstanding technical issues. There is no further documentation or plan revisions that Mr. Politz or any of the peer reviewers are looking for in our belief. And that furthermore, they've itemized items that could be ripe for conditions as suggestions to this board in any decision that you make. So I think it was quite a milestone for 2 years in that we've gotten to that point. And essentially we are here to answer any questions the board has, but from our standpoint, we think we're done with supporting documentation and plan revisions, and would look for the board to close the hearing and move into deliberations on a decision.
So that's just, you're not going to present that?
It's here for questions, Madam Chair, if in case a particular question and I need to point to something.
Okay, that's wonderful. I don't see Mr. Politz here this evening. Oh, where is he? What, are you hiding on me now? Do you have anything you'd like to say? Obviously, yes.
Sure. For the record, William Politz, City Engineer for the Department of Public Services here in the City of Peabody. I apologize, the acoustics are not perfect in this hall, so I think I heard most of what Joe had mentioned. They had met with ourselves and Horsey Witten, and at one point with World Tech, and at this point they've satisfied pretty much all the technical issues that were still outstanding. Through the chair, if I have a moment, I just wanted to point out to the board for their consideration, our memorandum was issued late today. But we just still want to call it to the point to the board that everyone is aware that the project's within the 100-year floodplain. So every year there's a 1% chance that the property could flood, including the surrounding neighborhoods, and that it would be approximately 6.4 feet of water in the area of the building. We also just wanted to point out that There is not an approved wetland line at this time, but we believe, based upon the line that we'd seen in the past, that the the project limits are about 3 feet, maybe roughly off the wetland, and one of the buildings, the rear building's roughly 7 feet off the wetland line. It's just something to consider. And then the only thing in respect to parking is that with the use of the 20 tandem spots, that's how they were able to achieve the ratio of 1.58. I'll leave it up to the board if you'd like me to go through the additional things in our memorandum in respect to if a decision was made on the project, what we would hope would be included in that decision. But I'll leave that up to you if you'd like me to run through those.
We'll accept this for the record.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And I believe this was the document we did accept, the 6/21/21 memo from Will Pollitt, the city engineer. Thank you very much.
Through the chair, I just want to make sure that when you accept everything into the records, that you're aware that there's a separate memorandum from Horsey Witten dated June 14th, 2021 attached to this memorandum itself.
Mr. Beals, would you like to speak?
Thank you.
An address for the record.
My name is Larry Beals. I'm with Beals Associates. My business address is 2 Park Plaza in Boston, Massachusetts. And what I wanted to do was hit on some highlights here. I think the board needs to focus on some of the real key issues here. And in doing that, over the past week, I've been going through the record that we have. It's quite extensive. The brown folder on at my seat is the information that I've been tracking as we go through it. But I'd like to hit what I believe are the high points, but I'd also like to say that there are many other points that are part of the record that the board needs to give consideration to, but please keep these items in mind. The first item is from Mayor Betancourt, and he originally sent a letter a while back and then reiterated that letter. And I think the points, his conclusion in that letter is worth repeating. This has been a long process, and it's hard to keep all the information straight. So I guess I'll just punctuate what I think are some of the more poignant comments. And his conclusion is that the city of Peabody, and this was a letter to the state about the project, that the city of Peabody contends that the developer's submission of the site approval application to Mass Housing to develop the parcel as an 80-unit rental development under 40B was not done in the spirit of the law. And he goes on to explain why. And then he goes on to say, as with previous submissions, flooding and public safety are the main concerns with this site. The city of Peabody, as expressed by the parties that have reviewed the application and voiced their concerns in the documents attached, are troubled by the proposed development of this project. First and foremost are issues related to public safety from increased traffic and the lack of accessibility to the site by the fire department in the event of a flood. So as the board deliberates, you need to consider the pros and cons of this project. What about the project makes it, in your mind, something that should be approved, and in contrary, what about the project that makes it something that you're concerned about? Will went through his letter. It was quite comprehensive. I think it's about 18 pages. It's part of the record. Had he not focused on it, I was going to focus on the bottom of page 2, in which he highlights the board should be aware of the following items. And I'll just reiterate what he said because I think it's important. The site is located within FEMA 1% annual chance floodplain, 100-year floodplain, which is designated at elevation 27. And what that means, as he explains, every year there's a 1% chance that the main building could be surrounded with up to 6.4 feet of floodwater. So for perspective, I'm about 6'1". There would be, the water would be about here. So if I were to walk across that site during a 100-year storm event, I'd be underwater. And that poses a certain number of problems for public safety. And then he goes through a very comprehensive review of it. And as an overview, it seems like they've solved a lot of the engineering issues. And it's been peer reviewed, Will has reviewed it, and there isn't anything outlined in this that has to have attention prior to you closing a hearing. There are things that you can condition if you're so inclined to do that. And Horsley Witten has a very comprehensive review, and then it all boils down to item 12, in which they've properly proposed potential conditions of approval for the ZBA to consider. So these are things that you should consider. And I'm going somewhat in order of importance, at least in my view. These issues are getting more serious. So we turn to the fire chief, because this involves public safety. And the fire chief sent an email on Friday, May 21st, in which he states, I echo Chief, I believe it's Pasden, December 23rd, 2016. So evidently, the prior chief weighed in on this project in 2016 and he had remarks regarding the fire exposure hazard, inadequate water supply, access, flooding hazard, and the added burden to our public safety response. And I read that memo to say the current fire chief is supporting those comments. He's not providing a contrary opinion, but I think he's taking the time to remind the board that you have that memo. And at the time, the chief stated that as fire chief and director of emergency management for the city of Peabody, I am in strong opposition of the proposed project known as the Residence at O'Shea Field, located at 40 Oak Street in Peabody. And some of the key points that he highlights, I'll give the abridged version, is significant hazard for fire protection because of the close proximity to one another known in fire service as an exposure hazard. So he's saying that there are many dwellings in that area, existing dwellings in close proximity, and it makes it difficult to fight a fire, and it makes it much more risky if a fire starts. It compromises the safety of those adjacent dwellings. He also goes on to talk about the existing neighborhood construction is in an area comprised of mostly wood-framed, older balloon construction containing 1 to 4 story dwellings that do not meet current fire code standards, equipped with modern sprinklers or fire alarm systems. As a result, any additional construction further exposing these units could be devastating to the entire area. His third point is the area is also prone to significant flooding due to the heavy rainfall. And I think his concern, as he articulates in the letter, is access and the difficulty of fighting a fire during a major storm event. And then he concludes with a fourth point, that the project will only increase the motor vehicles in the area and increase by at least several hundred residents needing evacuation, sheltering, food, and water. Such an operation is tremendous burden on public safety and places a hefty price tag on our taxpayers. Further, such flooding in the area will reduce our access to the complex and our ability to safely evacuate the residences if necessary. So I took some time to go through those 4 points because that is public safety, and I think it's important. And then There was a letter also by the Peabody Police Department. Thomas Griffin, the chief of police, also reviewed the project with Scott Richards, who is Special Services, and he raises issues about traffic. Traffic's been peer-reviewed. I think the traffic issues have been addressed, but he goes on to say Oak Street is fairly narrow, one-way street. The increased traffic pulling in and out of the proposed site represents a risk for an increase of car crashes, in particular at egress locations. This increased risk for car crashes would be most prevalent in the evening hours during the winter months. And then he has some other comments. He's concerned about snow removal. And then I think his most critical comment, if you have that memo, is item number 5. The proposed site plan is in an established flood zone, and even though the building will essentially be elevated above the floodplain, the parking lot and access to the elevators will still be at or below it, below the floodplain. This is of great concern. If the parking lot floods, and at some point it is likely to happen, emergency vehicles will be unable to access to the site, and first responders will have limited access to the building, leaving hundreds of residents at risk. And I know through these discussions, there was a draft evacuation plan that was presented by the applicant. It was discussed briefly at the last meeting. And I think as you deliberate on your decision, you have to pay attention to that draft flood response plan and determine if it's adequate, in the board's view, to protect public safety and to protect the residents of those buildings. And to refresh your memory, it's a draft flood response plan that's based on the prediction of weather. So if there's a forecast for 2 to 4 inches of rain, that would be called nuisance flooding, and the property management will notify the residents for a storm event, which will most likely result in only nuisance flooding. The next level, based on the weather forecasting, is moderate flooding. Property management will notify residents by a system of emails and text messages that a pending storm event may lead to moderate flooding. We have conservatively defined this storm event as 3 inches of rain, and it goes on to say that since parking lot flooding for a moderate flooding event is 4 to 12 inches, it is not anticipated that vehicle damage will result, and therefore the messaging from the property management will include voluntary relocation of vehicles from the site. We are suggesting the vehicles are moved to the North Shore Mall, located approximately 2 miles north of the site, but residents are free to find a place to relocate their vehicles. So I think you need to assess that as to whether or not that provides adequate protection and whether or not the weather forecasting is fail-safe enough to make these sorts of predictions to protect public safety. And then with the major flooding, these flooding events occur when storms exceed 3 inches of rain in a 24-hour period. And this flood management plan, emergency response plan, states that the statistical probability of such a storm event occurring once every 2 years or longer. So, if you think about that statement, this is major flooding that may happen every couple of years. And it goes on to say that today's meteorological prediction techniques allow sufficient time to plan for such pending events. It doesn't address what you do if somebody's on vacation or out of town, or how you provide notification for them, particularly with regard to vehicles. And again, it's to move vehicles to the North Shore Mall, and it states that the Peabody Fire Department has an emergency evacuation plan should there be a medical emergency or fire during such flooding event. So you contrast that to the memo from the fire chief that says, I'm not sure we're properly equipped for that, or that's gonna I think, overburden their current systems. So that's the conclusion. I went from what I viewed as primarily issues that have been resolved to issues perhaps that haven't been resolved. So you're welcome.
Okay, Kurt, do you have anything to add? Nothing. Okay. And any other questions by the board or comments? All right, so as we heard, we have been listening to peer reviews, questions, answers, information since August 5th, 2019. At this time, here, because there are no other comments or questions by the board, I would like a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close.
Is there anybody in the audience that wanted to speak on this? No. Okay.
Second the motion.
Roll.
Yes to close.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Need it, but yes. So the public hearing for 40 Oak Street has closed. We now need to set a date, and that date is within 40 days to render a decision and vote on that. And I am looking at July 26th. Could you check your calendars? It will be the only thing that we hear that evening. Julie, do you know? Is that a yes? Dan is a yes. I'm a yes. Stephen's fine. And Barry, we're waiting on you, my friend. I know your schedule is... How can you fit your calendar in that phone? Okay? Okay. So we are going to meet again on July 26th at 7 p.m. to render the decision. Okay? 7 p.m. 7:15. 7:15 on July 26th. And at that point, we will render a decision and take a vote. No. It's written in stone, July 26th. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Yep. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, yes, very nice to see everybody in person. Thank you, everybody. It's been a long time and a lot of work. Now we're going on to our regularly scheduled program. Our regularly scheduled meeting. Number one is continued application of Mr. and Mrs. Roshan, care of Julia Moradian. And that would be 53 Real Lynn Street. Name and address for the record.
I'm Julia Moradian with Seeger Architects in Salem, Mass. And my clients are here as well. Sorry, I didn't bring boards. I wasn't sure if there was a presentation, but you all have the drawings in front of you, I believe. So what we're looking for is dimensional relief on the side setback for a garage addition, as we went over last time. The one issue that seemed to come up in the last meeting was the size of the garage addition. So to mitigate that, we took a chunk out of the property side of the garage, so the property line side where we're asking for dimensional relief, and the side of what is the street after that other property. And so now from that property side, you will see that it looks now more like a regular kind of garage from that elevation. And we also brought the ridge down to match the ridge of the existing house. So I think now the massing and the size of the garage is more in keeping with a garage, and it also brought down the lot coverage a little bit, and the square feet, obviously, and the dimensions of the garage.
I must have left that on Carla's desk. What was the measurement, the amount of, that they reduced it?
The original was 1271, and now it's 1060. I believe they removed 162 square feet.
162 square feet. I'm not sure.
Also, volume came down with the ridge line came down.
I do have a couple of questions before we go on. So you passed a plot plan in that did not show a pool, and then you passed another one in that showed a pool. So we don't have any setback measurements between the pool and the proposed garage, and you need at least
8 feet, it says. It's right there.
That's the setback, 8 feet?
That's the distance between the pool and the garage corner. It's a above-ground pool. It's not a...
Okay, so I see.
We
I
were
see
originally
how you
told
did
we didn't
that.
need to put it on the plot plan because it was above ground, so, and then we were asked for this meeting to put it on there. And there are no other sheds or anything else on the property.
Okay, so this structure is still quite large. I just have a couple of questions. The last time you were here, you told us it was going to hold a boat and some other toys,
Right,
Things.
just, things for your lawn.
car and...
Your cars and the things for the lawn, yes.
Okay, so at the end of the day, it's still very large. It's very large, and I don't think that you scaled it down enough for my liking. You're still asking for quite a bit of relief. And I would like to hear from other members of the board, if you may, if you have questions or comments.
Just through the chair, I'll just say that I tend to agree that while we appreciate the reduction of the extra 162 square feet coming out of it, I still think it's quite large, and I fear that it sets a dangerous precedent for a 1,000 square foot garage. And I understand that it's serving a double purpose, that it's a garage plus a shed kind of combined together, but I fear we're setting a very dangerous precedent with garages, something that's being labeled as a garage being more than 1,000 square feet.
The rear portion closest to the pool would be able to build without any zoning requirements. It's just, we have to get the two-car garage in there anyway. So this setback requirement to get the 2 cars in, we can't reduce that.
Not just 2 cars, it's 2 cars and a boat and everything else. So it's
Well,
not
not
a
anymore.
It's not a 2-car garage.
It's not anymore. You can't put that boat directly in there anymore.
But it's still larger than a 2-car garage.
Right, but the side that we're asking for relief on is now the size of a 2-car garage. Well, 30 by 24.
Through the chair, yeah, just to kind of give you a sneak preview of where we're going to come down on this thing, I'm also inclined to think that this is just too much of an ask. You certainly have a hardship in the shape of the lot. And I have no problem with an ordinary, 22 by 24 or 23 by 24, maybe even 26 deep garage. But I just think that this structure is too big, and I'd have a hard time voting in favor of it as proposed.
Through the chair, and I would tend to agree. We sometimes learn from our mistakes, and that's an unfortunate thing, but Sometimes you try to do the right things, and then when it's finally built, you just say, "Oh my God, what did I do?" And I'm afraid that this is just where we're going with this one. It's hard to justify a garage and an auxiliary structure of that size. It's almost as big as the house. It might be bigger, yeah. So I would have a hard time approving that. Unfortunately, it just doesn't fit in the character of the neighborhood, a structure that size. Go any neighborhood that has what I would call an oversized garage, or maybe call it a mistake on our part, but on my part, maybe, but it just doesn't fit, and it sticks out like an eyesore, and that's what's going to happen here. So I would have a very difficult time doing this. Thank you.
Do we have anybody from the audience that would like to speak in favor or against? Hearing none, the matter is before the board.
Oh, before we do that, Frank, do we want to afford, and since it's kind of been a preview coming attraction, do you want to afford a chance to further reduce substantially in order to avoid any kind of issue in the future?
It's up to you.
Dan?
So last time we tried to get a bit of a feel for what you wanted, and I'm kind of hearing 24 by 24, but not sure. We regularly design 30 by 24, 26 garages for people. Yes, so we would like to be able to try again, continue.
Just, I don't mind putting on the record myself, but I think you kind of heard from all of us that something more in kind, and I understand the difficulty here with the shape, like Dan said, something more in kind, and that 24 by 24, if 24 by 24 is like 580 square feet, which is nearly half of the total square footage of this here. So if you come back something with more in kind like that, at least me personally, I'd be more inclined to be agreeable to it.
Through the chair, just to add to that, though, I mean, I will say, I don't know that we want it much closer to the lot line. With
Right, we're not.
22.92, you're already only 3.85 feet from the lot line.
Yeah, that
So to me,
22 is
I
from
wouldn't
the side.
necessarily change that distance. It's the
Right.
30 feet
Yep.
plus that I have an issue with. And if that were brought in, I think that would be, that might be more reasonable.
Yes, we would like to have a continuance.
The next meeting is July 19th.
The next meeting is July 19th. So we will accept the motion to continue till the July 19th meeting. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, we'll see you July 19th.
When do they have to get a revised plan to us so that we can review it in time for the hearing?
When?
So they're going to need to submit a revised plan for us to review prior to the hearing. I don't think it needs to be re-advertised because it's been out there, but
It would need to be re-advertised, but the relief may change, so the denial may change at that point, because it's going to be a revised plan.
so for the July 19th meeting, when will they have to get you the plan?
2 weeks before.
2 weeks before, okay.
Is that doable?
Yep,
Okay, all right, thanks.
Thank you.
great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody. Number 2, application of Karen Betancourt.
Notice is hereby given that the Board of Appeals of the City of Peabody will hold a public hearing Monday, June 21, 7 p.m. at the Wigan Auditorium, City Hall, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, on the application of Karen Betancourt for a variance from the provision of the zoning ordinance 2019, as amended Section 7.2 as it applies to the premises known as 7 Jeffrey Street, Peabody, map 83, lot 71. Petitioner seeks a variance to addition side setback where 15 feet is required and 13.2 feet is proposed. Addition front setback where 20 feet is required and 18 feet is proposed. Deck side setback where 15 feet is required and 7 feet is proposed. Property is located in R1A zoning district. The application and plan are available to the public and can be viewed by contacting Carla McGrath at carla.mcgrath@peabodymass.gov or 978-538-5792 in advance and prior to the public hearing. The agenda for this meeting is posted on the City of Peabody website.
Hi, I'm Karen Betancourt, 7 Jeffrey Street. I'm here for dimension relief for a deck, porch, and a side addition. Thank you. I lost the word.
So, Ms. Betancourt, did you go to any of your neighbors, or any of your neighbors here? Do you see any?
I don't see anybody. I did speak to my neighbors. I spoke to the ones directly on either side of my house. Neither of them had any problem with it. They were in support of it. I also spoke to several who live, I kind of have 4 neighbors in front of me the way my house is, so I spoke to several of them as well. And nobody had any issues with it that I spoke to.
Through the chair. This is the type of, hardship, that we look for, just to state for the record, where it's a corner lot. There's really no place for, these additions that are being proposed. So I don't have a problem with this one.
Questions or comments by the board? Anybody in the audience to speak for or against matters before the board?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? You're all set.
Thank you.
Number 3 is Jennifer.
Notice is hereby given that the Board of Appeals of the City of Peabody will hold a public hearing Monday, June 21, 7 p.m. Wigan Auditorium, City Hall, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, on the application of Jennifer Deutschen, care of Attorney John Kelty, for a variance from the provision of zoning ordinance 2019, as amended Section 7.2 as it applies to the premises known as 8 Herald Road, Peabody, map 14, lot 18. Petitioner seeks a variance to construct a Fala addition and requires relief to the rear yard where 35 feet is required and 27 feet is proposed. Right side yard where 20 feet is required and 12 feet is proposed. This property is located in R1 zoning district. The application and plan are available to the public and can be viewed by the contacting Carl McGrath at carl.mcgrath@peabodymass.gov or 978-538-5792 in advance and prior to the public hearing. The agenda for this meeting is posted on the City of Peabody website.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk, and members of the City of Peabody Board of Appeals. My name is John Kelty. I'm an attorney. I have offices at 40 Lowell Street here in Peabody, Massachusetts, and this evening I appear on behalf of Jennifer Deutschen. She is the owner of property at 8 Herald Road. She is hoping to build an addition that will qualify as a Fala addition. Therefore, living space to be added will be under the requisite amount, which off the top of my head, I believe is 600 square feet. We did apply 700 square feet. We did apply with a plan which suggested that we were seeking rear yard of 27 feet rather than 35, and our side yard is 12 feet. That is rather than 20 feet. We are adding an addition over an area that has heretofore been driveway. The addition will be 55 feet from front to back and of varying widths. When we initially applied for this variance, Commissioner Tallarico took issue with the building plan, and that has been revised. It results in the same variances. However, the area at the rear that showed initially as heading out 16 total feet is now 15.11. That makes the difference of some 2 feet when carried into the living space. And so now this particular design is in full compliance with the requirements of Fala units. And we are hopeful that the board will see fit to grant this variance this evening. Thank
So you answered my question. I was going to ask you if you were in compliance with all the FALA regulations, and you are. Okay.
Yes, we are.
Questions, comments by the board? Excuse me. Anybody in the audience to speak in favor or in opposition? Question?
through the chair, and excuse me if I missed it as I was going through the application, but is the roof line of this addition going to match the existing roof line of the current structure?
Yes.
Okay, so we're not building any higher than
No.
the existing home?
Correct.
Okay. And there's no variance required for lot coverage? We're not taking up too much of the lot where you would require a variance?
That's correct. That was reviewed. In fact, that was a question Commissioner had, and that was calculated by Eastern Land Survey, and no, we did not require that.
So it's just the rear yard,
And side yard.
8 feet, in the side yard, you need, 27 feet from the rear and 12
Right.
feet from the side?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're right. The
Questions or comments? Hearing none, the matter is before the board.
Motion to close the public hearing. Motion to approve.
Roll call vote.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Number 4, Nelson Pacheco.
Notice is hereby given that the Board of Appeals of the City of Peabody will hold a public hearing on Monday, June 21st, 7 p.m. Wigan Auditorium, City Hall, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, on the application of Nelson Pacheco for a variance from the provision of the zoning ordinance 2019, as amended Section 7.2 as it applies to the premises known as 145 Russell Street, Peabody, map 4, lot 73. Petitioner seeks a variance to construct an attached garage and requires relief to the left side yard where 20 feet is required, 18.5 feet is proposed. Property is located in R1 zoning district. Application and plan are available to the public and can be viewed by contacting Carla McGrath at carla.mcgrath@peabodymass.gov or 978-538-5792 in advance and prior to the public hearing. The agenda for the meeting is posted on the City of Peabody website.
Just before you start, real quick, I am not conflicted out of this by about 3 feet. My uncle owns a property that's about 305 feet away. I can remain unbiased. If you don't want me to sit on this, I will remove myself, but I'll leave it up to you.
Okay. Good evening, I'm Nelson Pacheco. 145 Russell Street.
And Riley Fadden, also at 145 Russell Street. So yes, I think as you already summarized, our proposal is for essentially an 18-inch variance on the side lot. We have spoken with our neighbor who lives in that house who said, build away, have fun, go for it. So that's the bulk of our request, and I'll keep it short for the sake of time. So we purchased the house like a year and a half ago, so all of the existing structure was prior to us. Fine.
Just give me a ballpark idea of where 145 is? Like, what are
It's
the...
almost touching the end of Russell Street, like almost right at the line of Linfields, like Middleton, North Reading.
So if I was going down Russell to...
All the way down towards like Boston Street, you're like almost
Are you
there.
at the right or the left?
We're on the right-hand
right.
side.
And there's no like structure there now, obviously.
No,
No, we're probably,
we're the 9th house from the end of the street.
oh.
You're only building a garage?
A garage with an attached mudroom.
An attached what?
Mudroom.
And like a porch, obviously, to go up to said mudroom.
Through the chair. So, I mean, this doesn't seem like much of an ask, but we had a garage earlier that looked too big. And it just seemed, I mean, if this was 26 and a half feet wide, they wouldn't even need a variance. And that would be plenty of parking. You know, you could easily, I mean, I think most garages are 24 by 24, 22 by 24. So I'm curious as to why the garage is the size that it is. Like I said, if you just brought it in 18 inches, you wouldn't need a variance at all. So how important is the 18 inches to you, I guess?
It's more of not dealing with the surveyor because he was a complete asshole trying to deal with him getting the plot plans. So I said at that point, I was like, you know what, I'll just...
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
I apologize. I was like, you know what, at that point, I'll just go for the variance. Why not? I just didn't even want to deal with him again.
Oh, okay. I mean, in hearing that, I mean, honestly, I mean, I would...
I mean, I also would say that, like, for, like, his entire life has been a car enthusiast and, like, is constantly in the garage at the place that we lived previously, tinkering with cars,
Yeah.
opening
So, yeah, no,
opening doors and not hitting into posts, walls.
yeah, I mean, honestly, at 26 and a half feet, you're not going to, I mean, unless you're parking a couple of boats in there, like, you should be okay. I mean, just hearing, you know, I appreciate the transparency, but, like, you kind of made my case. I don't think you need a variance for what you're looking to do. There's plenty of room on that side of your house to put a big garage. I mean, I don't know that there's anybody in here, you know, in favor or in opposition, but I think we're kind of setting a bad precedent, and we just did it like 30 minutes ago. So it's fresh. So I'm sorry. I don't necessarily want to deny it. I prefer you to withdraw it because I don't think it's needed. That's my opinion.
I would also say the person directly across the street from us has essentially the same
Doesn't
size
matter.
garage.
Doesn't matter.
That's not relevant.
Right. And I have to agree with Dan. I think you're better off withdrawing and just making this smaller and not getting a variance at all.
Okay.
Because it doesn't, I can't speak for but I think you just heard two people.
And we do have to be consistent,
We have to be consistent.
yeah, especially same night.
Okay.
So what do you want to do?
I guess I'll just have to withdraw.
Okay.
So I think we vote on the withdrawal, all right? So motion to accept the withdrawal from the applicant? Without prejudice.
Favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you. Yeah.
I have William and Tina Gongas.
Notice is hereby given that the Board of Appeals of the City of Peabody will hold a public hearing Monday, June 21st, 7 p.m. at the Wigan Auditorium, City Hall, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass. On the application of William and Tina Gongas for a variance from the provision of the zoning ordinance 2019 as amended section 7.2 as it applies to the premises known as 18 North Central Street, Peabody, map 64, lot 23. Petitioner seeks a variance to construct an open deck and requires relief to the right side yard where 10 feet is required and 9 feet is proposed. Left side yard where 10 feet is required and 8 feet is proposed. The property is located in R3 zoning district. The application and plan are available to the public and can be viewed by contacting Carla McGrath at carla.mcgrath@peabodymass.gov or 978-538-5792 in advance of prior to the public hearing. The agenda for this meeting is posted on the City of Peabody website.
Tina Gongas, 18 North Central Street.
William Gongas, 18 North Central Street.
The proposed project is a 16 by 30 deck off the existing rear door of the home. Due to the angle of the house, we're slightly short 2 feet at the start and a foot from the ending corner.
See, it's an oddly shaped, well, yeah, and very narrow, and you're not really asking for much. And, yeah, you do have legitimate reasons here. Questions or comments by the board?
Just reiterate what you just said, Fran. It's extremely narrow lot. It's a hardship. shape of the lot, and it's a small ask.
Anybody in the audience? Oh, no. Matter is before the board.
Motion to close? Motion to approve?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? You're all set. Thank you. Accept any minutes? Do we have to accept any minutes? Yes. We need a motion to accept May 10th minutes.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
All set? All right, so our next meeting is July 19th. And we're sleeping over. So, and that meeting is at 7:30. Barry? Okay. Motion to adjourn. Thank you, everybody.